Welcome to our Jasper Stories in partnership with Jasper Pride. Now this is part one of a three-part series brought to you by the Jasper-Yellowhead Historical Society Museum and Archives. My name is Warren Waxer. I'm the Vice President of the Society, and today we're going to first talk about David Thompson. Now, David Thompson is a fascinating character in the history of Canada, and specifically the Jasper-Athabasca region. He was often referred to as the greatest geographer Canada ever produced. It's unbelievable the number of kilometers he trod in his lifetime and the number of square kilometers he mapped over that same time. David Thompson was born to Welsh parents in England, and when his father passed away, the family was in desperate financial situations, and as a result, schooling was going to be a problem. But fortunately, David was quite a gifted mathematician, even at a very young age. And with that academic promise and the fact that the family didn't have much money, he was accepted into the Greycoat School. It was quite a prestigious school for low-income families with high academic abilities. And that school was also known for its math and surveying. So David started with the math and trigonometry calculus program at the school and was doing very well when the Hudsons Bay Company came by. Now the Hudsons Bay Company would come by the school because they were looking for children from families of low income that could use a good contract working at one of the fur trading forts, and they needed people with good mathematical abilities to be clerks, surveyors, and the various other jobs. So at the tender age of 14, David Thompson came to Hudsons Bay, specifically to the Churchill Fort, to begin his apprenticeship. He was supposed to be working as a clerk and trained as a clerk, but he more or less worked as a gopher for the first number of years, learning to cut firewood, hunt, and all the bushcraft that ultimately would come in very handy for the rest of his career with the Hudsons Bay Company. And then when his 3-year term came up, as a bit of an incentive, the Hudsons Bay Company offered every employee a bit of a signing bonus. And that consisted of a pair of woolen clothing and a set of linen clothing. And David wrote the committee in London saying, in lieu of these really prized gifts, could you possibly send me the tools of a surveyor, that being a sextant and a very accurate watch? Well, they must have thought he was a pretty good employee, because not only did they send him the instruments, they also sent him 2 sets of new clothing. So with the new instruments, although he was not officially a surveyor, after he would complete his duties during the day as a clerk at the various forts he worked at night he'd be staring up at the stars, taking readings, and doing those long mathematical calculations to determine latitude and longitude. Clerk by day and a surveyor by night. And when ultimately the Hudsons Bay Company offered him a promotion to chief of the inland trade, he realized he would never get on the track to be a surveyor, which was now his new goal. In order for David to pursue his dream of being a surveyor, he had to jump ship. And after quite a few invitations to join the Northwest Company, he finally accepted and became the head surveyor of the company. Shortly afterwards, he traveled east and helped with the surveying of the 49th parallel west of Lake of the Woods area, right to the Red River. And this had never been done before, so this was all very groundbreaking work he was in on. With all this travel and job changes, David still had time to marry. He married Charlotte Small, who was the daughter of a Scottish trader and a Cree lady. They stayed together for 57 years, had 13 children, many of them during David's working career, traveling back and forth from fort to fort, and basically mapping the west of Canada. Both the Northwest Company and the Hudsons Bay Company were constantly pushing west and north because that's where the better quality furs were. The colder the winters, the better quality beaver pelts. One of David's first major assignments was to find a way over the Rocky Mountain Divide onto the Western watershed. He accomplished that at Howe's Pass in 1807, going down the Columbia River. There was trade back and forth, and this ended when the Piegans on the east side of the Rocky Mountain Divide found out that the Northwest Company were trading with their rivals, the Kootenays, on the west side. Not only did they not want to lose the job of being middleman, which they had worked for quite a few years, taking furs from the Kootenays and selling them, but they also didn't want their rivals to have guns and horses. So as a result, the Piegan blockaded the Howe's Pass. There was no more east-west travel through that route. Well, that didn't stop David and his intrepid group. They backtracked along the North Saskatchewan River, eventually moving north onto the northern watershed, the Athabasca River. Followed it west into the area of what's now Jasper, and ultimately over Athabasca Pass in 1811. Now, this was the first trip over that pass by any white person. They were guided by Thomas the Iroquois. This route had been used by the various indigenous groups for years because it was one of the lower passes to get across the Canadian Rockies. So after crossing Athabasca Pass and down the Columbia once again, David Thompson finally reached the Pacific at what is now Astoria, Oregon, only to find out that John Jacob Astor of the American Fur Company beat him there by 4 months. And slowly he faded out of the fur trade. He was getting a little bit older and he had put on many kilometers, and he decided to retire in Montreal. Of course, he had to get there by canoe and by foot. It's unbelievable how many kilometers he put on. In the Montreal area, actually Longueuil, Quebec, he suffered some financial setbacks. Although he had a pension from the Northwest Company, he made some bad loans and some bad investments and found himself nearly penniless. And as a result, he worked odd jobs. Back surveying, working on the Boundary Commission through the Great Lakes, and also building boats. One thing he became very skilled at while he was in the bush was building boats. Because when you consider it, you paddle along the river, but when you have to go over a pass, you're not taking your boat with you. You have to walk and build a new one on the other side. So he became quite skilled at that. One financial setback after another. He ended up having to move in with his daughter and son-in-law, eventually died penniless in Longueuil, Quebec. And he was buried at the Mount Royal Cemetery with not much of a headstone. Ultimately, the Canadian Historical Society realized that Canada's greatest geographer needed a better tombstone and built a beautiful monument to his life. So David Thompson died at the age of 87, and during his lifetime, he surveyed 9 million square kilometers of Canada. That's almost half the landmass. It's an incredible achievement. Just recently, his journals were published, and it gave some indication of what a great man he was.
If you would like to learn more about the Jasper area, please visit us when we're open to the public again. If you would like to see more of our Jasper stories and the many other programs we develop, please visit our website to learn how you can support the Jasper-Yellowhead Museum and Archives.